Hello, my name is Peyton Bogert. I will be doing the information speech for today's presentation. I'm going to go ahead and show my UFID. I am choosing not to use an index card for this speech. At this time, I would like my audience member to wave. Cool, perfect. Wittgenstein once quipped that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Before 1817, deaf American citizens lacked access to a language. With the development of American Sign Language, or ASL, the potential for the deaf community became unlimited. After completing this video, you will be gifted an insight on the history of ASL. By listening to this information, you will walk away with the knowledge about the struggles and the triumph the deaf community faced when creating American Sign Language. By opening your heart to explore the beauty of ASL, you will personally benefit by seeing that there is a whole world of people to learn from. I am an informed instructor on the topic of ASL because of my own personal hearing loss. And in addition, I have done several hours of research regarding the history of ASL. The history of ASL can be broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1, the initiation of the French Sign Language Revolution. Phase 2, the establishment of deaf universities throughout America. And Phase 3, the creation of dialect and pidgin sign languages. ASL is a beautiful language, and its roots draw influence from the French Sign Language Revolution. Before the French Sign Language Revolution, there was a negative stigma that the only way to challenge deafness was by learning how to speak. Sarah Siemens, a deaf advocate, notices a change in this perspective of deafness with the works of a French priest named Lepage. Lepage came up with the idea to translate the sounds of the alphabet using hand signals. Lepage then went out to establish the first manualist and free public sign language school in the world. A picture of Lepage can be seen on your PowerPoint slide. 21 schools alone were established in France because of Lepage's success. However, despite the powerful movement turned by Lepage, it would be another 66 years before the first deaf university was established in America. With the development of deaf universities, we are now entering phase 2 of the development of an ASL. According to Start ASL and ASL blog, in 1815, Thomas Hobson Gallaudet studied the applications of French Sign Language and recruited Warren Clark to join him in teaching deaf Americans in America. In 1817, the dynamic duo would establish the first deaf school in America. These influential figures can be seen on your PowerPoint slide. Within this century, Start ASL predicts that more than 30 state-supported residential sign language schools were established, in addition to Gallaudet University. Gallaudet University would become the first deaf university in the world. With the foundation of public educational systems, ASL began to be passed on through generations. And with the development of deaf universities, ASL became more widespread and regionalism began to take shape and variations began to form. With the creation of dialect and pidgin sign language, we are now entering phase 3 in the development of history and the development of ASL. There are many variations of sign language that differ from American Sign Language. Signing exact English, or SEE, is often taught to hearing parents who have deaf children. In order to bridge the gap between SEE and ASL, the North Carolina Hearing Loss Association has seen an increase in the usage of Pidgin Sign Language, or PSE. PSE is a mixture of ASL and SEE. ASL itself is also constantly evolving as a language. For instance, the word language once used to be signed with the letter L, but we are now seeing that it's starting to be signed with the letter F. After diving into ASL's diverse history, we can have a better appreciation for it as a language. And with the creation of dialects, we see where ASL is now currently and its potential for future development. When reviewing the history of ASL, it is important to notice the hardship the deaf community faced when creating ASL. It is also essential to remember that without the initiation of the French Sign Language Revolution, it is likely ASL would never have found its rooting. And without the establishment of public universities, ASL never would have become a popular form of communication within the deaf community. With the gain of popularity, ASL was able to undergo a period of transition in which dialect and pidgin sign languages were created. Although the history of ASL may be brief, a study from Gallaudet predicts that there are over 500,000 speakers that use ASL. ASL offers beauty to our world. Thank you for taking time to learn about a bit of my deaf culture. At this moment, I would like to open the discussion up for questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why did they change the sign for language?
That's a great question. They changed the sign for language in order to develop the culture of ASL more. Because ASL is relatively recent, a lot of people don't accept it as a foreign language. So in order to make the language more complex, they're starting to change the sign from starting with the letter of the language to different signs. So instead of starting language with L, you're seeing it being signed with S in order to have more of a complex language.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Gallaudet located, the university?
That's a great question. Gallaudet University is actually located in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is one of the deaf capitals in America. There are so many deaf citizens in Washington, D.C. that they actually have deaf Starbucks where you can go and sign your order instead of verbally request your order. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think ASL is the most important part of deaf culture?
Yes, I do think ASL is the most important part of deaf culture. Without a language, there's no means of communication and a culture is not able to be formed. In addition, if you look at deaf art, you see that a lot of the art incorporates hand signs that relate to the language. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it and I hope you learned something today. Bye.